welcome to Varsity Nutrition. I'm Derek Marks, and in this episode, we're going to talk about post-training nutrition. The goals for your post-training nutrition strategy is to begin the recovery process as soon as possible, and of course, as thoroughly as possible. You should be aiming to replenish what you use, which means you're replacing carbohydrates and also providing proteins necessary for muscle repair and growth. The objectives for today's talk, we're going to talk about carbohydrates specifically, how much you should consume and why, protein, how much you should consume and why, and then finally finish with what you should be drinking and when you should be drinking it. Let's start with carbohydrates first. The goal with your post-training nutrition strategy for carbohydrates is simple: replenish what you use. So consuming carbohydrates will immediately begin the process, or as soon as possible at least, of replacing glycogen. Glycogen is that storage form of carbohydrates that you use when you train. How much carbohydrate you need to consume really depends on the training session itself. The longer you train, obviously, the more carbohydrates you should consume. So generally speaking, as a good starting point, we're looking between 25 and 75 grams of quick carbohydrates in your post-nutrition plan. Quick carbohydrates are simple carbohydrates, basically sugars. Chocolate milk, which is that nutrition facts label on the screen here, is a really good source of carbohydrates to consume post-training. Not every meal of the day. We're talking sugar right now, but this is the time to consume sugar. So that those carbohydrates in the chocolate milk are an ideal way to replenish what you used. You'll notice circled here on that graphic is that carbohydrates. This is one serving of chocolate milk. There's 26 grams of carbohydrates in that one serving. So for most athletes, we're talking mixed sport athletes especially, 1 to 2 of these post-training, usually plenty. The process of recovering glycogen is very, very slow. You probably take a good 18 hours or so to fully replenish glycogen stores. Really depends on you, your post-training habits, your nutrition, how much you're using your body. But regardless, if you have hard training sessions day in and day out, the importance of your post-training recovery drinks, foods, become that much more important so you fully recover by the next day. On to proteins. So proteins consumption really helps end the breakdown of your muscles from exercise. So when you're training, your muscles are getting smaller, they're getting weaker, they're getting broken down, right? And the idea is to train hard and then provide them the building blocks when you're recovering to make them bigger, faster, and stronger. Consuming protein and actually consuming carbohydrates, even in the absence of protein, will stop that process, but consuming protein will stop it and then start giving the building blocks to make the muscles adapt. So with protein, and this is still a label of chocolate milk on the screen here, you want to aim to have in the neighborhood of 10 to 30 grams of protein post-training. It does depend on your training session. The longer and harder it is, the more protein would be appropriate. The shorter and less intense it is, the less protein. So aim in general for about 10 to 30 grams. Again, most mixed sport athletes, that's absolutely appropriate. And you'll notice that chocolate milk, this version has 9 grams, and that's, I think, an 8-ounce container of chocolate milk. So let's talk about timing and what you should be drinking, right? So we still have the chocolate milk label on the screen here. First and foremost, if possible, right, and this is all about you planning and taking care of yourself, a liquid form of recovery is what you go after first. Why liquid recovery? Because it's quickest. It gets out of your stomach, into your intestines, absorbed into your body. That's where those nutrients start to make a difference. Anything sitting in your stomach is just sitting in your stomach. So liquid form of recovery is the most efficient and the most appropriate. Timing, and I've already said it a couple times, immediately post-exercise is ideal. There's always discussion, or there is discussion about this window. As long as it's within 2 hours, you're fine. That's true. The body is able to take those recovery nutrients, the carbohydrates and proteins, and utilize them more efficiently immediately after exercise for about 2 hours or so. It's just this window that slowly closes in terms of an accelerated rate of recovery. But that doesn't mean waiting 2 hours is just as good as consuming that drink immediately after exercise. Like I said in the previous slide, catabolism and metabolism continue after you're done training. And it won't stop until you consume some nutrition, some nutrients. So get into the habit of immediate post-exercise recovery drinks. It can go a long way. And as mentioned previously on the carbohydrates, it takes a while to recover. And the sooner you start the recovery process, the better recovered you're going to be for that next training session. And that training session will be better because of it. So it's really this chain linked sort of effect. Get in a good habit immediately post-exercise. In your post-recovery drink, it should be carbohydrates and protein. That's why I keep pushing the chocolate milk. Yeah, it's mostly carbohydrates and protein. The one on the screen here happens to be full-fat chocolate milk. That's fine. Actually, for recovery, I prefer a low-fat chocolate milk, a little less fat there. Fat will slow down the rate that things leave your stomach. So even a low-fat chocolate milk is probably preferable over a full-fat. Personal choice, but I would go with low-fat. The ratio of carbohydrates to protein is somewhat important. Firstly, it's important that they're together. Carbohydrate consumption increases the release of a hormone called insulin. Insulin helps get carbohydrates into the cell. It also helps get protein into the cell. So when you consume the carbohydrates and protein together, it's a really good combination. Research has revealed that about a 3-to-1 ratio, 3 grams of carbs to every gram of protein, is the optimal ratio of those nutrients in a recovery drink. Does it have to be exactly that? No, but the closer you get to it, the closer you are to an optimal recovery drink. If you do the math on the chocolate milk, it's about a 3-to-1 ratio, right? So very convenient for us, right? Chocolate milk is pretty readily available. Most college and high school cafeterias have it. Most stores have it. It's affordable. You can get healthier versions of it. So you can find it in a lot of places. The types of other recovery drinks besides chocolate milk, because I'm talking about chocolate milk a lot, there are things like muscle milk and other recovery drinks. They're fine. I prefer the more natural ones, the ones that look more like food, which is chocolate milk. Read the labels on them. Look at how much carbohydrates in them. Look at how much protein's in them. And then you can make a decision from there. Again, to me, the gold standard is chocolate milk. So there are other protein drinks and shakes out there. Be mindful. I have a lot of athletes that really like that Fairlife chocolate milk. Fairlife is a filtered milk. They have regular milk and chocolate milk. The Fairlife chocolate milk is good, but what they do is they filter out all the carbohydrates. So Fairlife, I think, has 30 grams of protein in it, and I think like 2 grams of carbohydrates. So the ratio is not optimal. So for a recovery drink, I don't like Fairlife. Or some other sort of protein powders that are just protein. So again, be mindful with your recovery drink. Look at labels. Get that ratio of carbohydrates to protein in there. Aim for 3-to-1. Even if it's 2-to-1, that's fine. But make sure there's at least some carbohydrates in there. And then to finish, make sure you have a real meal within the next couple of hours to then provide the full complement of nutrients and some extra carbohydrates and fat, and carbohydrates, protein, and fat. To help with full recovery. So the takeaways here are obvious. Immediate post-exercise recovery drink is essential. We want to replace our glycogen that we use. We want to repair and grow our muscles. The 3-to-1 carb to protein ratio is ideal. So overall, you're looking at, in the neighborhood, it always depends, 30 to 75 grams of carbs, 10 to 30 grams of protein in your recovery drink. Chocolate milk is my favorite. And have that full meal within a couple of hours of that training session. Thank you.